few thank yous. Hold your applause. We want to thank the library for providing us with this venue. I want to thank Chuck Woodleggy, who normally records, but his back is giving him problems, but he still brought this wonderful wireless mic, and he's here tonight, even though he's not recording for us. We want to thank KFSR Radio, the Woodward Park Friends of the library, Bill Reeve, who just made that long introduction and explained a lot of stuff so that I don't have to explain as much as I would normally. I want to thank Sandy Hedrick for being a board member and helping us out in the back there. And he already introduced Eli Park, and we want to thank KVPR Valley Public Radio, because they also, on David House's jazz show, he'll make mention of what we have coming up here. And then, of course, the City of Fresno and the taxpayers of Fresno for the Measure P grant. Now, Bill already told you about 3 performances of the Latin Jazz Fresno Big Band. So tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, we want to see you down on Fulton Street at Tulare, outdoors, but there's a lot going on. It's Why Not Wednesday, so there's food vendors and there's exhibits and so forth. We'd love to see you down there. But if you don't want to come down there and you'd rather come to a morning performance, then as Bill mentioned, at the Riverview Shopping Center, 10 a.m. on Sunday, we're hoping to be there. So we're still trying to contact whoever's managing the farmers market to get the final approval. We're working with Patrick's Music, but they are having trouble seeing that through. And then a week later, on Saturday, not actually a week later, we'll be doing one more performance that Bill already mentioned at the Patrick's Music at Barstow. Okay. Important, an unusual special Jazz at the Library presentation coming up this Monday, the 23rd, 6:30 right here. In fact, you might just want to stay in your chairs. From Italy, but by way of New York, she's been living there for about 10 years, an Italian jazz singer will be coming with her pianist to perform for us. Right now she's over in the Bay Area performing, and people are paying money for their tickets. You're going to get to see her for free. So she's coming because she doesn't want to sit in a hotel room and not do anything, and she'd rather perform for a great audience like you all. So we're hoping you'll come back on Monday, this coming Monday. And with that, we can now get to tonight's presentation. So starting with Larry Honda. Larry, you grew up in Monterey, am I right?
Right.
Monterey area. And then came to Fresno to go to Fresno State, got his bachelor's of music there, went on to the University of Southern California, got his master's, came back and taught at Fresno City College for a couple of decades at least. He was the chairman of the music department there for a while. He also taught all the woodwinds, jazz theory, jazz combo, jazz improvisation, and I know I'm leaving out one thing that you taught, like music appreciation, I think it was. But he knew Tim as a young boy before Tim touched the saxophone. Is that right? Yeah. So they've known each other for a long time, and he watched Tim, and Tim was one of Larry's students, so that's kind of the link here, the friendship that we have going. And then Larry taught Tim at La Sierra Music Camp. Tim later on joined the faculty there, so they were colleagues, and so that was part of the impetus of putting this program together. Tim Shaghoian grew up in Fresno, so he's a product of Fresno, went to Buchanan High School, went to Reno, where we have another local product that was the head of the music department, and then finally became, I think, the dean of professional studies in that area. Anyway, Tim went there and got his jazz performance degree, and then came back to Fresno to get his, so that was his bachelor's, came back and got his master's here. He had a record album that was released in 2020 on Origin Records, but I hear you're working on a new project that's soon to come out, am I right? July 11. So you want to be looking for that. So I don't want to take up any more of their time. Would you please welcome Larry Honda and Tim Shaghoian.
be here, and especially to be with my old friend and mentor, Larry. To make music with Larry is really special for me, and of course to get to do so with John and Gary and Rick is a treat as well. And this is actually the first time getting to play with Rick. I've played with John and Gary over the years here and there, but special also for the first time, not the last time, hopefully, together. So Larry came down to LA not to visit me specifically. Larry's daughter Marissa lives in LA as well, and he showed up at a gig of mine unannounced, and it was the best. It made my week and month and year probably all in one. And then we went out for coffee and we were talking, and we thought, hey, we should play together. It's been too long. And so came up with the idea of getting together here and hopefully playing here for Jazz at the Library. And so we're so grateful for this awesome turnout, to see so many familiar faces. Thank you so much for being here. I'll talk some along the way, and hopefully Larry as well, and about some of our path together. And I'm also very cognizant, because I've been sitting on the other side of this many times in my life, not just here, but in performances, master classes, all around, where the performers talk a lot about their lives and their love for each other, and not a lot about practical things that might help musicians. So I'll get to some practical things too eventually. You stick around for that, hopefully. But for now, we'll keep playing some more music. The next song we're going to play is a song of mine called Half Measure, and it's going to be on my upcoming album released in July. And this track specifically is already available to listen to. You can find it if you search my name. There's a silent H in there, some of you know that already because of either me or a building somewhere around there, etc. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Tim did a great introduction about the story. I was actually down in LA to babysit for my brand new grandson. Well, he's 8 months old now. But I managed to get away from the babysitting a little bit in order to hear Tim play and surprise him. And really, I surprised him, but then I was really knocked out by the music he was playing and the people he was playing with. And I hadn't heard him in a while, and I just was so impressed. And so Tim reached out the next day and said, let's have some coffee. And we talked about jazz music for a couple hours. But I just really felt compelled to play with him. And I felt like I could just picture you folks here listening to Tim play. Because I just felt like ears needed to hear the music that he's writing and performing. So I'm just so grateful that you're all here filling these seats and in the back here, because you're really hearing a great talent, I think. And he's just a great friend, person, a character, very humble. I just really admire him. So mentor, student, but it comes back. So I say that all now as we go on, get back to the music. And actually, I should let Rick speak about this next tune. It's not up there yet, called Emergence of the Young Lions. Huh, Rick?
Yeah, when Larry called me to let me know that he was going to be bringing Tim up, well, it's typical of the way I usually respond to things. So would you like to play? And my response was, is that a rhetorical question? So anyway, in that period of time, since that call and this last few weeks rehearsing, I started writing a new piece, and it was inspired just by the fact that Tim was coming, and Tim is a lot younger than I am. Anyway, it's a tune of mine, a new composition. In fact, this is going to be the premiere performance, I guess, here at the library. Anyway, it's called Emergence of the Young Lions. And there's a subtitle, and it's called Dedicated to All My Young and Inspiring Musician Friends. And I'm looking at one right now. So, Emergence of the Young Lions.
Yeah. If you would, one more time for Rick for writing me piece. When I thought a little bit about what I might want to say about my relationship with Larry and the ways that I've become a better musician from my many years working with him, and his patience with me over time is how I've seen, let's say, as I get older, every year I think I return closer and closer to what Larry would have wanted me to practice. Or maybe the way he would have wanted me to practice when I was younger. And I'm very fortunate to have had great teachers all my life who were very patient and very forgiving and open for me going in whatever directions I wanted to go, listening to whatever music I wanted to listen to, and bringing it to them and saying, here's what I'm interested in, and maybe I didn't do the exercises you told me to do, and whatever, you know. But I've found over the years, my practicing, especially as I have, let's say, weaned off working with teachers of my own, is my practicing has become more and more regimented year after year, more and more prescribed. And I used to practice in a much more open, sort of free-flowing way. And while that was good for a period of my life and served me well to explore openly, I found the speed in which I'm getting better is much faster now than it's ever been. So I wanted to say a couple of things about that, and maybe you will have some things to say about why you have structured things the way that you have, working with your private students over the years. I'll let you ruminate about for a while while I talk, and you can think. Give them some space. So I wanted to say, because I know that there's many great musicians in this room and people who are currently practicing very purposefully and heavily, that I've found, at least especially as a wind instrument, the things that I've gravitated towards more and more are fundamental sound exercises, and I know people talk often about long tones and overtones and these types of things, and I've been approaching technique in a more and more regimented way, and I guess all of this is leading to say that my current practicing is really structured to be as flexible as possible as an improviser. As I'm saying this, I feel like, maybe, does anybody want to hear this? I don't know. Just questioned it for a second. Maybe I'm going too far into the weeds here. So I'll give it a couple of examples of things. There's some exercises that I've been working with my students. I was really fortunate to come in and teach at Cal Arts this past semester while the great saxophonist Vinny Golia was on creative leave. And that was a good opportunity for me to bring some of the most, let's say, challenging and complex things I'm working on to students that are really talented and have a lot already that they're bringing to the table. And so, again, the things that I've been working on to be as flexible as possible as an improviser, one with rhythm would be some specific exercises. So I'm going to give an example of this. And maybe, not that I don't want to make Gary like be a metronome, so I'm going to actually use a metronome. This is one thing, of course, I practice really heavily with the metronome. I know everybody says to practice with the metronome, and I didn't always do that when I was younger, but now I am every day, all the time. So this exercise is at 90 beats per minute, and 90 beats per minute sounds like this. So I've been doing this exercise to try to be more flexible with rhythm as an improviser by taking different melodic cells or like short melodic ideas, melodic motifs, and playing them. It's like contracting and expanding the speed through metric modulation, basically. It's like you play the melodic cell as half notes, then dotted quarter notes, then quarter notes, then dotted eighth notes, then eighth notes, then dotted 16th notes, then 16th notes, then you come back out to half notes. Okay? So I'll give an example with a 4-note phrase. I'll play it at like 1, 2, 3, 5. In this case, concert B flat, C, D, and F. relative terms is easy. You might say it feels difficult, but structurally, you're changing every four notes for the 4-note cell. So then, what makes it a little bit more challenging, and then also makes you more flexible as an improviser with rhythm, is to do it with different lengths of melodic cells. So I'll give an example of a 5-note cell, but you still change half notes to dotted quarters, etc. every 4. So then the rate at which the melodic cell is not lined up with the rhythmic change. Oh, this time it'll be B flat, C, D, F, G. So 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. So that one, it doesn't line up with the 5. You have to go through multiple times to get the 5-note phrase to line up. But it was correct. You can just trust me if you. Which is what I say to my students. You can play it back, but I'm going to tell you it's going to be right. I don't know what to say. So this is one example of a rhythmic exercise for more flexibility as an advisor. A lot of this, right now all the students that I'm working with are college students, and so a lot of them are looking for ways to develop their own voice as an improviser, as composers as well. But I find the way that you can most quickly access yourself in practical terms, there's a whole other emotional and life component that we could talk about, but just practically with the instrument and with ear training and everything, I think exercises in flexibility to open it up as much possibility as you can is a big thing. So I don't know. Did you think about all the things you want to say?
No, I was just
Okay.
captivated.
Do you want to say something now?
I can't follow that.
You don't have to. Do you want to play?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're going to play. Oh, we're going to play another song of mine. It's also going to be on this upcoming album. It's called Debris Field. Thank you.
yeah, I just wanted to, before we play our next tune, just add to what Tim was saying and just some reflections about Tim. You heard him play, you heard his compositions, but you've also heard he's a pretty good teacher, and he's a natural teacher. And I saw him grow up at La Sierra Music Camp. Any La Sierra Music Camp folks here? Anybody? Okay, come on. Right, and Tim was a teacher there. I saw him teaching, and he's just a natural teacher. So he's just evolved that all into what you've just heard. I mean, he's just really developed his own techniques and everything that he works with the students right now at Kyle Arts. So that's another thing about Tim's development. Just one other thing, since he went into the weeds as far as saxophone teaching and improvisation, I'll just have to say one thing, and this is just what I observed with Tim. I began teaching him when he was in middle school. So maybe some of you parents out there, you've had children that came up through school music. And as far as the jazz went, we really didn't do so much with that, as that he really learned how to play the saxophone, so that whatever music he learned, he could execute it on the horn. So that meant going through the method books, which are all classical, it's all written out, the scales, the etudes, and all these, all in a classical way. He auditioned for California State Honor Bands and got into all those. And we did hit on jazz, but we had to make sure that he was learning how to play the horn correctly. So I remember later on down the line, when Tim was in the university and all that, I remember him telling me, coming back and saying, I'm glad you taught me those things, because there's guys that just went right into jazz before they really learned how to play the horn. And so I'm thinking, this is a part of your development that he's going to carry on with his students too. So it can get very sophisticated, but it all starts with the fundamentals with everything. All right, well, going on to this next piece is something that, well, it's not up there yet, but it's called Intuitions. And this is a piece, composition I wrote, about maybe 40 years ago. And I was inspired when I wrote it by Wayne Shorter. So maybe some of you are Wayne Shorter fans, especially this time of period. He played with Miles Davis and with Wayne Shorter, with Art Blakey. And so this tune is kind of reminiscent of that. I was really inspired by him. And after this song, I never wrote anything again.
Yeah.
I'm too scared because this turned out pretty good. So at least these guys are willing to play it. I think that's it. So we'll play now for you, Intuitions.
Thank you so much. One more time for Larry's 40-year-old composition. And it sounds like it was written just yesterday. So, I'm cognizant of the fact that usually there's some sort of opportunity for a question and answer, and we've dominated the space with words and sounds from up here. I don't know. Does anybody have any questions? Bring the mic to you or something?
I have not. I just have a question about the tenor saxophone. Was that developed before the current saxophone?
We don't answer those kinds of questions. Go.
Oh my God. I just don't know much about it.
The question is about the soprano saxophone. Right, it's not bent like Tim's and mine, the tenor saxophones. But the soprano saxophone, they make curved ones. This is just straightened out. I think it's better for tuning, and there's acoustical reasons. But yeah, if you can play all the saxophones, you can play them because they're all set up the same.
Was that developed at the same time? Because I've never heard soprano saxophone before.
Oh my, yeah. I won't get into the history of the saxophone, but Adolph Sax, it was a guy that named Sax, and when he invented it, he invented all the different sizes at the same time. So yeah, thank you. And there's a question here. Yeah, Arthur, is that you?
Yes, hi there. Here. This is a question to actually anybody on the bandstand that wants to answer, but I've noticed that your creativity, Mr. Shaghoian, is really potent and really vast, but also so is your technical abilities. So, and this is something I struggle with a lot in my playing, is how do you separate the technical side of yourself, the creative side of yourself? Are they separated? Or do they somehow come, maybe this is a big question, but I hope maybe you can provide some insight into that type of thing.
Did everyone hear Arthur's question about? Here, we'll give it to Tim. You can recap his question.
Do you want me to clarify?
You want me to answer it, or you want somebody else to answer it?
I can tell you what I think.
People couldn't hear.
Okay, so basically, if I'm getting it right, Arthur, you're talking about the technical side of your playing, mastery of the instrument, and then the creative side. Yeah, am I right so far?
And kind of a follow-up to that would be like, which do you develop first, or do you develop both at the same time, or how do they go hand in hand?
Okay, well, I'll tell you how it works for me. I've been playing the piano for a long time. And when I listen to other piano players, like the major artists, it became very clear to me that I wasn't going to have the technique of a Keith Jarrett or an Oscar Peterson. But I continued to develop my ideas. So I guess what I'm trying to say is basically, you have to work on them together. You have to work with what you have at hand at the moment and to make the best use of it and continue to grow. And as you continue to practice, and I have a feeling Tim might agree with me on this, is that your capabilities, not your capabilities, but your ear and your creative palette begin to expand. Like the way that I play now is not any way the way I played when I was in my 20s or my 30s or even in my 40s. There are certain things I'm interested in now that I play, and that I try, or I should say, I try to play. Within the limitations of the technique that I have. So don't let them be at odds with each other. Just when you're playing, you have to devote yourself, your heart, your attention to what's happening, the interactions that are happening in the band, and how you fit into that, and how you're responding. The thing I love about Tim is I've been noticing we got into a few things that were really cool, where either he started something or I started something, and we just kind of like went with it for a while. So anyway, that's my thing. I think Tim probably has to say.
It's a great question, an important question. I want to circle back first to the soprano question. I apologize for my smart aleck response. This is because my friend Ross is in the room, and this happens to me. I can't stop it from happening. But for Arthur's question, it is a big one, and definitely, I know we can't be here. I could be here till 10 p.m., 11 p.m. we could talk about it. But I'm going to answer it in a way that's not very practical, but hopefully will be resonant for you. When I was younger, I used to worry more about gaining too much technique. I was sort of scared about gaining too much technique because I didn't want it to get in the way of more melodic playing or something that I thought would be me or truthful. And then through especially my teacher in Reno, Peter Epstein, he helped me see that gaining technique or learning technical things are a means to opening up, not to closing off. You know, so the more that you take in does not mean that has to come out in your playing. It just means that it's opening up the possibilities of the instrument. Yes, there's going to be periods of time where you're improvising and you go, I played that thing again that I'm practicing and I'm getting sick of hearing it, or it's coming out again. These are just things that you have to accept and let go through the cycles that you go through. But I would say, just as importantly, the longer I've worked, been very focused on music, the more I've found that if you're being honest about the exploration musically, what you're listening to, what you're playing, what you're writing, the beautiful thing about music is it's something where it's very hard to hide from yourself in music. And there's a lot in our lives that make it easy to hide from ourselves. For me, it's this the most. It's easy to hide from myself with the phone. And I find that's a very beautiful thing from my life, both within and outside of music, that it's an encouragement to delve deeper, to try to better understand oneself and to get closer to the person that you want to be. I think that's right now my biggest measure of musical success day in and day out is, do I feel like I sound more like myself than yesterday? Do I feel like I know myself better than I did yesterday? And sometimes that process is painful, but always in a good way. So I don't know if that's helpful, but
That was very insightful.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Tim, aside from your music educators, as a kid, I know my kids started playing, from elementary on, trying to glean from who their influences were, and who was yours growing up? Not that you were running to emulate, but who was your inspiration?
Besides music educators, as in musicians that I've listened to, or are you talking about non-music inspiration?
Yeah, like a musician. I
'Cause-
have a son who Charlie Parker was his
Yeah.
inspiration.
I was a big Tiger Woods fan. And I still am. It's just complicated now. It's hard. It's very difficult. I try to separate the art from the artist, but it's tough. I've been very drawn to Joe Henderson in my life. And maybe my favorite Joe Henderson album is State of the Tenor, live at the Village Vanguard. Which, well, maybe I should jump around, I don't know. For like, let's say, more quote-unquote modern players, I've been very heavily influenced by Ben Wendell and Mark Turner. There's a great alto saxophonist that's, I think, based in, maybe in London now, named Will Vinson. He's a wonderful saxophonist who, if you thought like the exercise that I mentioned about the rhythmic expansion and contraction was somewhat, I don't know, tough to grasp, go watch some videos of him talking about music. It's like much more wild than that. And so many saxophonists, so many non-saxophonists. Nowadays also, especially like writers, filmmakers, something that has really affected me the past, year, 7 months is the show Severance. Love that show. These things find their way into I remember when the movie Inception came out, that Christopher Nolan film with Leonardo DiCaprio, big cast of course. I went and saw it probably maybe at the Edwards 21, is it 21? Are they up to 35? Mark, are they up to 35? And I watched that film and immediately came home to my mom's piano and started writing a tune about that movie. And like the levels, you could go down different levels of Inception. I was thinking, how can you build different melodies that you like hear in different ways when they come in later sections and come back, so it's everything beyond music as well. Does anybody else want to say anything? I think we're out of time. We're out of time, right?
It's flexible. Come on.
We do a short last tune, I guess. Yeah. So this is an arrangement that Rick very kindly did of Wayne Shorter's Juju. So we're going to play that to finish things out.
Well, before we play our last tune, they really cut us off now.
Hello. Oh, yeah, I just wanted to give some thanks to this band here, these great friends I've had. Rick Helzer on piano, Gary Newmark on drums, Lauffenburger on bass. And I'd just like to thank JazzFresno, Joe, Bill, Sandy, all the folks that help out. I'd like to thank all of you for coming out and supporting, and just thanks for Tim for coming up here and sharing with us. So thanks, man. Remember, Juju by Wayne Shorter.
Larry Harmon, John Lauffenburger, Gary Newmark, Rick Helzer. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you to JazzFresno, thank you to the library. Thank you, Jim. Thanks, Larry, and everybody else. That was really great. Hey, one last thing before you leave, I forgot to mention. So this is our last of the season regularly scheduled Jazz at the Library, although we have one next Monday, a surprise one, but or an extra one. But if you're curious about what's going on or you're going to miss us in the summer, the best thing you can do is follow the QR code and sign up on the email list, okay? And we'll send you once a month or twice a month a reminder, but we record all of these and they're being edited. They usually run a month to 2 months behind the date of the event, and they come out on our YouTube page. And so we plan to have one come out like in July, about the time that you would normally come here. So you can watch it from home and crack a bottle of wine and enjoy it. And then again in August, and then you'll hear a note about what's coming up in the fall. We're trying to work on a project where there's a really great bunch of young musicians downtown with Jazz Tuesdays, and we're trying to work on bringing one of the groups they've been featuring up here to feature at the library and work with them because there's some really great things happening downtown. So anyway, thank you again for coming. This is my really bad attempt to get you to please follow the QR code and fill out my survey information. Thank you. Thank you. This was wonderful. Thank you, everybody.